Perfect. Okay, welcome everybody today. I'm Kim Scheintel. I'm president of the JGS of Southwest Florida, and it's good to see all of you here today. I just wanted you to know most of you are members here, but if you're not and you're here for the first time, you're welcome to join. It's $25 a year for a single and $30 for a family membership. And Liz Klaber is here and she's our treasurer. She's waving and she's always happy to take money. And Robin, listen to this very carefully. This is the second lecture we've had on JRI-Poland. I want you to know when our first one was. It was in 2000. And we actually had one of our members, Sandra Krish, who had just discovered JRI-Poland and said that she wanted to give her own program, not a professional, just that she was so excited about using the JRI-Poland link on the Jewish Gen website that she wanted to share what she learned. And at that meeting, I still remember it, there were only 5 people that came, and it was in person. And we said, well, should we cancel the meeting? We've only got 5 people here. And I said, no, you never know what these people are going to learn. Let's do the meeting. So then I went around the room and I said, who in this room is doing Polish research? Who's got Polish roots? And I was the only one that raised their hand. Yet everybody enjoyed the meeting. And I went home after that meeting and I scoured the JRI-Poland database on the website. And I was able to find the names of 2 of my great-great-grandparents. So I have been a firm believer in what the JRI-Poland website can offer to everybody. So thank you for all you do. And now I would like to call on Howard, our program chair, to go ahead and introduce our speaker. Howard.
You're muted, Howard. You're muted, Howard.
Howard, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, well, I've lost the screen completely. So that was, I'm not sure what happened, but as soon as you went to Zoom and I'm lost. But nevertheless, if you can hear me, I can proceed. This is our last meeting of this season. We'll be back in November. We meet on the 3rd Sunday of the month. November through April at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Today's speaker is Robinn Magid. Robinn is the Assistant Director of JRI-Poland.org and a recent recipient of the IAJGS Lifetime Achievement Award. In 2020, Robinn became the project manager of the JRI-Poland Next Gen project to redesign the JRI-Poland website, database, and search engine. She is a frequent speaker and writer on Jewish genealogy topics. Robinn's genealogical work resulted in her being recognized by the city of Lublin, Poland, her grandmother's hometown, with a medal in 2017 from the mayor for inspiring the future and cultural identity of that city of 340,000 people on Lublin's 700th birthday. Robinn has spoken at many IAJGS conferences on behalf of JRI-Poland, and has served as the chair of 2 groundbreaking conferences, IAJGS 2018 Warsaw Poland Conference and the IAJGS 2020 Virtual Conference on Jewish Genealogy. She is a member of the San Francisco Bay Area JGS and has spoken to her group and to other societies. Robinn and her husband have raised 4 wonderful kids and recently became grandparents. Robinn, you're on.
Thank you. What I would like to do today, as some of you heard who appeared early, is to explain kind of the JRI-Poland universe. I'll start with a bit of a presentation, which I've pared way down so that most of the time can be me showing you our actual website, and I'm willing to continue to answer your questions until the point that most of us are tired. But what I usually do is wrap up within an hour and 15 minutes. So one of the things that I was too busy to ask was, how long does your meeting go? So maybe we'll start with that and define our parameters to make sure that an hour and 15 minutes is okay.
That's perfectly fine. That's just what we usually do.
All right, thanks. And so you'll help me, please, also monitoring the chats, because if things do start to appear in the chats, which we might not need since there's a smaller group, I may not be able to push all the buttons and pay attention at the same time. Okay, let me share screens and show you the dog and pony show part of the presentation from the beginning, and close this up a little bit. Okay, so I like to start with this slide because, as I said earlier, what you'll learn is it's all about me. Not really, but it's all about me. So this is my favorite view of my grandma's city, Lublin, Poland, taken from a hillside. And I usually start presentations with this because, for me, this is as close as we get to time travel, that working on our own family trees and actually seeing what our ancestors' world was like is the goal. And in a way, it's a dream. Now, my ancestors were probably never on this hillside, because if you look carefully, you'll see there are actually crosses on this fence. This is from the garden of a Russian Orthodox church. And so I doubt that my ancestors ever stood on this hill. But down below it is what used to be one of the early Jewish settlements of this city. Today, if you look between the bars, you can see it's actually a bus station, and there's a market, and there's all kinds of modern stuff. But what we do is kind of try to gaze farther out and to see what that structure of our heritage was. And so that's one of the reasons I love this picture. It also, I took this picture, I don't know, around 2014 or 2015. And if you can see my cursor, it turns out, make sure I got the right building. It turns out there's a building right here that I'm going to show you a close-up of, but that happens to be a prominent building that some of my ancestors owned about 200 years ago. And so when by capturing images of things, is my point, you may have something today that in the future, when you learn more, provides more meaning to you. And this is one of those pictures that it just was astounding to me that I took this great picture, and it turns out that there's a building in here that has personal significance to me. So you want to remember to grab things so that you can review them again in the future. And let's see if I can go forward on my slide here. All right, my key didn't want to work. So the JRI-Poland, I'll show you the website and all of that. The JRI-Poland database is something you can access through our website and also through JewishGen, as Kim mentioned, that she began by using the JewishGen link on the JRI-Poland link on the JewishGen website. So please understand from the beginning that JRI-Poland and JewishGen are two entirely different organizations. Our organization is 28 years old. JewishGen is slightly older than that, probably more like 30, but I don't really know. And we're often confused with each other. And often people will say to me, "Oh, Robin, thank you for your help. I've given $100 to JewishGen in your honor," which is really nice. And I support JewishGen too, but we are not them and they are not us. And we are two completely separate nonprofit organizations who have nothing financially to do with each other. And the relationship is that we develop data and we allow them to display it, to display a link to us, not even to display our data, but to display a link to us through their website. And I'm going to refer to them several times because it is JewishGen, not JRI-Poland, but JewishGen is the home of Jewish genealogy on the internet. And it is a hub, and there are ways in which I'm going to recommend that you use it. I use it almost every day, and I use the JRI-Poland database every day. So in terms of the contents and whether you should be interested in us, let me say that we have indexed more than 6.2 million records from more than 600 towns in either that are currently in Poland or once were. Poland was a place that actually got invaded a lot and also invaded other places, and the borders and the empires changed over time, which we have a whole lecture about that's recorded and viewable in our own new on-demand library for our members, and we'll talk about membership later, but we have different categories of users. We have users who came in the way Kim did through Jewish Gen and just use us casually. We have users who come in directly to our website and set up free accounts. And we have now a new membership category that has additional benefits. So as we go on through this lecture, I will continually try to point out what might be a member benefit. And so please listen in, not just on geography, but also on the things you might want to do beyond what a general user can do in order to learn more about the JRI-Poland world. So we have, as I said, 6.2 million records right now, a lot more in development on PCs around the world, and they represent at least 600 towns. I think in terms of our projects, and I'll show you this, we have almost 1,000 projects now, some of which are completed, most of which will never be completed because more data comes available. And they, in our database, we contain information for more than 1,900 towns in the current or former Polish territories, but the 600 towns are our core and include primarily vital records. We go way beyond that, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. So the towns that are represented in our database are places that were once in Poland and today may be in Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine, Germany, Belarus, Russia, or the former provinces and empires of Galicia and Prussia. So if you're interested in any of these places, then you probably need to look in our database to see what we have. So then the question becomes, well, why would you have something that once was in a town, or that is in a town that once was in Poland? And the reason is that the bulk of our data comes from archives and libraries and schoolhouses within Poland today. So if something was once part of Poland, there's a likelihood that the records for it were kept in Poland and might still be there today. And that's why, if you're not interested in Poland directly, you would be interested in our database. So we also partner with other groups. This is an old slide, but I still think it's one of my favorites, and that we partner with groups, some of which are in Poland, some of which, like the Kresy Siberia, is in Russia, and they allow us to display their data on in our database. So when you do a simple search on the JRI-Poland database, if your family members appeared in these other databases, you don't have to leave our website and go to them like you do on Jewish Gen when you come to us through Jewish Gen, but we actually integrate their data with our search results. And so two of the, well, I put in Kresy Siberia because it's fairly obscure, but interesting. And the Foundation for the Documentation of Jewish Cemeteries in Poland is a very important one. I'm showing you an example here of a search on Schulfried, which is one of my uncommon family surnames from Lublin, in order to show you that when something appears in this database and you can click to an actual photograph, and I'll show you an example of what happened in my family because of our cooperation with the Foundation for the Documentation of Jewish Cemeteries in Poland. So the first search, not the search I'm showing you, but the first time I ever used that piece of JRI-Poland, which was probably 20 years ago, I discovered that my husband's great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather was in our JRI-Poland database, and I had been looking for his burial for about 10 years and discovered, we knew from family story that he was buried in the Warsaw Jewish Cemetery, and it turned out because of JRI-Poland's association with this foundation, that the ancestors' tombstone appeared. We were able to go visit it. And so here's my family. My son on the far left of the photo, my son Nathan today is 21. So I think that he was probably about 9 in that picture. And so it's been a while since we found and were able to visit this tombstone. But the cool thing about it, and I don't know if you can see it, but under where it says his name is Avraham Bar David Magid. And then the next line says Meir Chan Ukrania. So what we knew was that the Magid family was from Ukraine, but that this ancestor had died in Warsaw. The story went of an asthma attack in 1921 and was buried somewhere in the cemetery. So the actual matseva, the tombstone, actually tells us this is the right Avram Magid, because he says he's from the town of Chan, Ukraine, and that is exactly what we knew in the story. So so amazing things can happen. They can take a lot of work, and we were even able to bring our children to visit this ancestor's grave and to thank him for moving his family from Ukraine to they went to Cleveland actually, but from Ukraine to America. He didn't you know, make it all the way to America. He got only as far as Warsaw from Ukraine, but it's very moving and made a great impact on my family to prove the story. This is what a typical Polish language vital record looks like, and I've pointed out the different places in the record. This is formulaic text that was used between 1820, you don't have to remember this, but between 1826 and 1868, when Poland was, the Polish language was suppressed by the Tsar because it was the result of a failed revolution. Poland tried to overthrow the Tsar, and as a result, the Tsar tried to squash Polish culture, language, etc., which didn't work. But the records turned to Russian from 1868 until about 1915, when Poland wins its independence again. And so this is what a typical Polish language record looks like. It is in formulaic text. It normally says that early in the record that the father appeared. Sometimes it's the midwife or the grandfather, but usually the father appeared before the civil records clerk and said that in this case, this is a birth record, said that a baby was born and it happened on a certain date. And then often there's an address, which might just be a house number or could have a street address, and gives a time and date of the birth, which often is a very round number of when the birth occurred. And then may give the mother's maiden name, which it does in this case. Her name was Leah. You'll see the A is dropped because of Polish grammar, but her name was Leah, not Lay. And this is her maiden name, which has an O with an accent and a W on the end, which lets you know she's from the house of, it's like Shay in French. She's from the house of Grintish. And then down here, we look for the word Imye, which is, and they named her. And then you'll see, and this is why I love this particular record, that paper was precious, and they put the first 3 letters of her name on one line, didn't even bother to put a hyphen, that's actually part of the U there, and finish her name here and put her last name Morgenstern. So her name was Taube Morgenstern, and her father is repeated down here. Usually in a Polish record, the father is listed as the first witness, and it gives us a chance to see his name in Yiddish, or sometimes Hebrew, but usually in Yiddish, as well as in Polish or Russian. So the document itself gives us many clues, gives us multiple generational information, gives us the chance to see the name spelled more than once. In this case, the father's name is spelled the same in both instances, and is pretty similar in Yiddish, but it's not necessarily the case. We can often find records where a person's name is spelled differently 2 or 3 times in the record, each time uniquely. And part of that is because in Poland before the 20th century, there was no, it's going to sound strange, but there actually was no standard spelling conventions in Poland. And so in Polish. And so names didn't have a correct way to be spelled, unlike my name, which actually has two N's on the end of Robin. And if you don't put it there, when you try to email me, I won't get it. There was no consequence like that in Poland, and they didn't spell things a particular way. And as I showed you with Leah, in Polish grammar, the names and the nouns change. So one has to also put oneself in the within the culture and the cultural linguistic context of the people we're searching. I often have people write, not often, I have had recently people write me and say, this is how my name was spelled in America. Is this what I should be searching in your database? And the answer is it depends, but our names were fluid in Poland and often got changed once they left Poland. And so one has to be aware of the squishy search needs of finding your ancestors. So oh, I forgot to say, so I entitled this lecture Finding Your Eastern European Jewish Ancestors or relatives in Poland. Eastern European, what I failed to point out is that Poland is not in Eastern Europe. We think of it that way, being on this side of what they call the big pond, or the pond, but if you ask Polish people, they will tell you that Poland is in Central Europe and not Eastern Europe. We associate it with the Russian Empire, which clearly is Eastern Europe and was in the Pale. And Poland was never in the Pale of Settlement, which I didn't learn until I tried to use that as a marketing piece for the IAJGS 2018 conference. And we thought we would say, return to the Pale. And our Polish contacts, including Poland Museum, said you can't say that, we were never part of the Pale. And I had no idea. So know that Congress Poland was part of the Russian Empire. It was not part of the Pale of Settlement. It was also called the Kingdom of Poland. And so when we're talking about Poland and how it changes over time, we tend to associate it with Fiddler on the Roof and Anatevka and those kinds of things. And it really is not. It's part of Central Europe. It is not part of the Pale of, was not part of the Pale of Settlement. Jews could own property. Jews could be elected to their city councils. They were mayors of towns and villages. They had a very different life, and they could move and live wherever they wanted within the area of Poland. They were not restricted to the kinds of constraints that Jews in the Pale of Settlement had, which was primarily they had to live in the Pale of Settlement. Jews in the Pale of Settlement could live wherever they wanted, but in the Pale of Settlement, Jews in Poland did not have that restriction. And the vital records for the Jews of Poland have different language and different assemblage, let's say, or different construction than Jews in other parts of the Russian Empire. And so your handout actually has 4 pages. The first is a title, but includes 3 different pages of spreadsheets like this one, which attempts to show you how, as time moves on, how Jews were recorded within Congress Poland. The second page is, as time moves on, how Jews were recorded in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is Galicia, and in terms of JRI-Poland's database, means Galicia. And today part of Galicia is in Poland and part of Galicia is in Ukraine, Western Ukraine. And then the third page moves to the west side of Poland, because Ukraine is to the east of Poland. To the west of Poland, today is Germany. It was the Prussian Empire, and pieces of what was Polish Prussia are in Poland today, and some pieces, some pieces are in Germany today. There's actually a couple of towns, I don't have it on my chart, but we believe there are 2 or 3 towns that we have records for in Polish archives today. I think it's the Katowice archive specifically in southwestern Poland, but those towns, 2 or 3 towns today, are in the Czech Republic. So there's actually another thing we're watching. We don't actually have those records in our database, but we're aware that there are a couple of towns out there in the Czech Republic that that seem to have records in the Katowice archives. So, and I think that they're being moved because I think the Katowice archives is one that the Polish archive system is closing right now, but I may be wrong. So anyway, things are always in flux and moving, and COVID and budget cuts and all of that affect the Polish state archives like they affect all government agencies here right now. And so things are constantly moving. And one of the things we do as JRI-Poland is track that movement and work closely with the Polish State Archives. So from this spreadsheet, you will learn, if you're looking for your family in a particular time period, the kinds of documents that we know are available, what language they were in, where they're located, whether in the Polish State Archives or still at the town hall level. And we're trying to communicate all of these things by town through our new website, but the hard part is filling in information for 1900 towns. So it's a work in progress. The status of that information is expressed in this spreadsheet, meaning do we have we found scanned images of these documents, like the birth record that I showed you, online? When we can find them online, we have projects to link to them so we can, with a click, bring you to that actual document. It's amazing how that used to be understood as sort of the icing on the cake, and now that's what people want and they expect it. It's a very difficult thing to do. Of our 6.2 million documents, we have I think 2.3 million scans linked, so it's a lot, but it's only approximately a third, a little more than a third of our database. So it is unusual and a wonderful thing to get a scan, but one should not expect it, at least yet. The indexing status of our projects is kind of by time period is explained. And then I've added recently kind of the challenge. And so the one that the two that I should point out are that the earlier the document, the less likely Jews were using surnames then. And that came in with the kind of the Napoleonic period. Before that, we were, somebody ben or bought whoever the father was. And so in the new JRI-Poland database, we're working with other ways that you can search that information, and that we can, and we're expanding the fields that we have in that database in order to allow you to search for people who didn't have surnames yet. They may have had nicknames. We're going to be allowing you to search whether the person was a Kohen or a Levite, which are things that no other database has done. Here's a quick image of the Galicianer treasure map. I called it because my first lecture was about kind of the hidden treasures of JRI Poland, things beyond what you can just see by searching in our database. And so so I'm still calling this the treasure map and showing you some pictures of the Galicia that I visited. But the idea is it was in the Kingdom of Poland, then it wasn't, then it became the Kingdom of Poland again. Now parts of it are Ukraine, parts of it are part of Poland, part that's like Krakow. And so you can find similar information about Galicia, and then on your handout. But here I want to show you that in Galicia, rather than having the narrative formulaic text format that I showed you in Poland, Congress Poland, in Galicia, they had these matrices or spreadsheet formats for the records. This is a birth register. It's showing you 4 records to a page. And of course, because I said this is all about me, the top one is my paternal grandfather's birth record from 1895. And what's interesting is you'll see of the 4 records, only one has father's name information in the father's column. 3 of them don't, because this column here says "nieślubnie," which in Polish means not married. Of course, our ancestors were Orthodox Jews and they were married, but they may have been married by their hometown rabbi, and who may not have had state recognition as a religious entity, as a religious official, or they may not have had permission to marry because there was a law in the Austro-Hungarian Empire in the 19th century that only allowed the oldest son in a family to get a marriage certificate. It was a form of birth control, which is kind of the weirdest thing to think of ever. But my what I take away from this is that most likely my great-grandfather was not the oldest son in his family and did not have the control card that allowed him to register his marriage, but he could have been the oldest son and just chosen to have a local rabbi marry him instead of a state-approved rabbi. In any event, my great-grandparents' marriage is listed as not being married according to civilly, and so his father's information is here, but it's in the mother's column, and basically insinuates that a man appeared who stated that he was the father of this child. So so know that, like this record, what we believe is that 75% of Galicianer births are recorded as illegitimate births. Clearly, they were not illegitimate births, but this means that they didn't have inheritance rights, and because it was not, their parents' marriage was not recognized by the state. And what it means is, and cleared up another family story, which is that my maiden name was not my great-grandfather's surname, but was my great-grandmother's surname, because my grandfather, when he was conscripted into the Kaiser's army in World War I, was forced to use his mother's maiden name, which was Fisher. And so I was born Robin Fisher instead of Robin Drix, which was a name that my grandfather actually included on his Social Security application, but he inverted them so as not to have to explain it, and said that his mother's name was Hannah Drix when her maiden name was Hannah Fisher. So he kind of left us a clue, and it didn't really, the story didn't come to fruition until I got to this birth record, which I found on the JRI-Poland database. And this record is in Warsaw in a particular archive called AGAD, which you can see here, AGAD, which is an acronym in Polish. That is a particular archive in Warsaw that not exclusively, but mostly contains the Galicianer records for towns that whether they're in Poland today or are in Ukraine today, are Galicianer towns. So long way to tell you that if you're a Galicianer, you want to be looking in the JRI-Poland database, and you need to be flexible with surnames and understand that there's a funny thing that happened to us Galicianers with surnames in the Austro-Hungarian Empire because of those strange marriage laws. Our search strategy in whole, and of course I'm like losing track of time, so you'll tell me when we need to hurry up, is that we try to triangulate these surnames, which I'm trying to tell you, you need to be flexible looking at, the towns, which may or may not be in Poland today, and the time period. So one of my favorite stories about Prussia is that Roger Lustig, who's our Prussian expert, said his family came from, his grandma said they came from Posen. And most of us know where Posen is from maybe World War II movies or something. And so when his family left Prussia, they left Posen. But when he went back to it, it was not called Posen anymore, because that's German, and it's in Poland today. It's called Poznan. And so what he realized was he had a tendency to call this place Posen, but he was dealing with people in an archive who were not German, and in fact were a little bit not happy with hearing the name in German. They are in Poznan today. They have Polish culture, and as far as they're concerned, they don't want to hear the name Posen. So one has to be aware of the time period that that one is dealing with, and which language to be using, and which culture to be thinking about when we're referring to that time in that town. And it's why a lot of us can't find places on the map. If Roger was looking for Posen on a map today, he wouldn't find it. He would find Poznan. I brought this screen in to again, to focus on how we're triangulating to try to solve problems, but to show you also in the background is the new, but not ready for prime time, next gen search screen. I had it up for, we had it up for a while as a test, and I got tired of answering the question of, why did you take away the links to the scans? And why isn't this there? Because it only had test data. And so we took it away and are waiting to reintroduce it again, which we hope to do before the end of 2023 with fresher data and more expansive options. So the people who don't read the disclaimer that says this is just a test, don't think it has everything, stop complaining that we took features away. We're rebuilding the website from scratch in a 30-year newer technology than our old website. And we just can't do it all at once. We just don't have the money. So we're doing things as we can afford to do in what's called an agile way. And so when I show you the website in a minute, hopefully you'll see new things that you didn't know we did, but you may notice that there are things that our old site could do that we're not doing yet. Please do mention them, but please don't feel like we're being antagonistic and taking anything away. We're just not there yet. So the inset in front is the current and very old search system. So we call it the legacy system now, and that's primarily what I'm going to show you. I don't want to go into the detail that I usually do, but when you search our system, so look to the left in the blue, please. When you search our system, generally, I think people ask these questions. The first question, how do I learn something new? Can I come to your database and learn something new? And as somebody who's trying to help you, the first thing I need to know is, like, what do you know? Do you know names? Do you know towns? Do you know time periods? A lot of people don't. And in the question and answer period, I can show you some examples based on questions you ask me about some of those things, but we can't do your research for you. We can point you in a direction. And so I want to use the Q&A part as that. People, when I'm helping them, I try to figure out, well, what can we find easily? And maybe the tip of an iceberg, and then you have to go off and research it on your own. And then also I find that people that if I can confirm something somebody already knows, then I can say, okay, we figured out that is the surname in Europe. That's not an anglicized way of viewing the surname, or what somebody thought they heard. And this is the town, or maybe the neighborhood. For example, I live in Berkeley, but I may refer to it as the San Francisco area, but if you go to San Francisco, you won't find records for my children's births. They were born in Berkeley. And so we have to think of a town and an area. And again, the time period, as I've said. And you may have several surnames, like I had Drix and Fisher, but not know the town. By searching on those two surnames, I could confirm that my grandfather was really born in that particular town. And then what I really like to focus on is when you have given names and a time period, but you don't have a surname, because as we learn more about Jewish genealogy, that's where we're trying to get, is back into that darker age where we don't have surnames. And the question has been, can I get beyond what the vital records are? And that is the primary new goal for the JRI-Poland database, which is unique, I believe, in the world of Jewish genealogy, perhaps of genealogy at all, that we're trying to give you ways to get back to the area when our families did not have surnames. So let me very quickly tell you, this was a lady who I helped about 10 years ago, whose name at birth was Marion Stamen. And she came to me and said, I've been to, I believe I was born in one place, and this is ghetto period, born in one place, that means World War II. There were no ghettos in Poland before World War II. She was born in one place where her father was from, Opatów, or she was born in Lublin. She wasn't sure. They both had ghettos. Her mother had gone home to her mother for help when the baby came, which is a typical story. A lot of people think that their family was living in one place, but it turns out there's no birth record there or marriage record there. And it's because the maternal grandparents were in a different town, and that's where the bride or the mother, the pregnant woman went for help when the baby was born. And in this case, we had ghetto period. So the first thing to understand is that the cities were working during the ghetto period. All throughout the war, the civil registrars were working. And so we have wartime Jewish records up until liquidate, like in Lublin, up until the day of liquidation. And then the records actually continue for the Jews who survived that first action and were in a ghetto. There were the rabbi had kahal registers, and they were the official civil registers and the registration primarily of deaths, but it continues. And then after the war, the cities continue registration. And you think, well, why would there be Jews after the war? Well, it turns out that in Poland, Jews owned property. And after the war, Poland was a communist country, but it did not nationalize everything. They had nationalized businesses. They nationalized large apartment buildings, but small apartment buildings and residential individual homes were not nationalized. But now the Jewish owners of some of those places were gone. And so they had to establish who the property owners were. And so it turns out that after the war, there are court-ordered death certificates of Holocaust victims. Sometimes they're brought at, the cases are brought into question by heirs in other countries, primarily at that time Palestine, but primarily Israel and the United States. But you see and get family trees. It's rare, but you get family trees and all kinds of information post-war in the civil records. And those things generally are still kept under the Polish privacy law, which is not unique. The US has similar privacy laws. And so there's all kinds of other things. We're moving and trying to deal with things beyond the Holocaust, after the Holocaust, but we're also trying to deal with earlier than the vital record experience. And so we're getting used to looking at names and changes and time periods and all of those things. In this case, because Marion had come to me and said her name was Marion Stayman, and I knew that in the Jewish records before the war, and even during the war, Jews were not generally recorded by their Polish names. Marion is a perfectly good Polish name. They were recorded by their Jewish names, even in the town hall records, the civil records. I asked her, "Are you a Miriam?" She said, "Of course." And because I had the ability to look at the entire file of Lublin records, which was one of the ghettos her family was in, and the Opatów records, which was the other, I could see that there were very few people named Stayman in these records, but there were, in both towns, there were a lot of people named Steinman with an N in the middle. And so, but she had only looked for Stayman, and she had gone to each of these town halls in person and said she was Marion Stayman looking for a birth record. Neither could find it. But because we were more flexible, we were able to find that she was born in the Lublin ghetto, but she was recorded in her father's town of Opatów. And it says in her actual birth record, which she's holding up in this picture, that she was born in the Lublin ghetto. And so for the first time, when she was approximately 71 years old, she knew her birth date. She had a much longer story, but to make the story short, her mother didn't survive the war. She had been put in a convent at about age 1 year old, and during the war, as her parents tried to save her, one survived, the other didn't, and the one who survived didn't remember when she was born. So here she is with a happy ending because we were flexible about her name. To tell this other story quickly, I have an ancestor with an 1828 death record. He was buried. I have the death record in the JRI-Poland database. His name was on his death record is Herzig Ziegelman, and but his Jewish name, his religious name was Naftali Hertz. So in searching for Hertz-Ziegelman, I come up with his death record. But in searching for Naftali Hertz, without the surname, but putting in Lublin, which I'm showing you here down at the bottom, that I'm putting in a given name sounds like, and the town name of Lublin, what comes up in the, this is the legacy search, what comes up is this first search page that has things by key. So I have to look for things in the Lublin area, or the Lublin gubernia. And that's what I do. Sorry, let me back up. That's when I do that, I get the death record. But there's a little, I'm sorry, that's, if I scroll to the very bottom, because it shows vital records first, then it shows this entry for the foundation of the documentation of this name is very long, right? I showed you this in one of the early slides. This is an entry saying that a tombstone was found for Naftali Hertz in the Lublin Old Cemetery. His death date, December 28th, 1828. I know that because I have his death record. And then it says here to click the link for the full details. And so when I clicked the link, I got this beautiful picture. I went to the foundation's website, got this picture. You can see this tombstone is lying on the ground. I had been to this cemetery 7 times, photographed every tombstone, and did not see my ancestor's tombstone because somebody had come in and cleared the cemetery better. This was lying on the ground. It got published in a book, and cousins went out to see it. Here's my cousin having found this on the ground. And then now 3 years later, during COVID, because actually we found this in 2018, just after the Warsaw Conference. So it's now 5 years later, having involved other groups. That's a picture of the beautiful unicorn at the top of the tombstone. But we were able to upright and restore that tombstone. And you can see there's all these famous rabbis, because the Nazis stole the other tombstones, and famous rabbis, Talmudists, Kohanim, and then my ancestor, Hertz-Ziegelman, and his restored original tombstone in the old Lublin cemetery that closed within a couple months after his death. So amazing, wonderful, miraculous things can happen, but it's the timing has to be right. One has to have done the background research, and one has to be extremely lucky, as this man was. This man is now unfortunately of blessed memory, but his name was Israel Crystal. You can Google him and learn that JRI-Poland helped prove that he was at the time the world's oldest man. It turned out that he, in order to follow the restrictions that Guinness Book of Records had, he had to show proof of his age from before he was 20 years old, and his parents didn't register his birth, which is a very common thing. Well, we don't know that they didn't register his birth. We know that there are some years of books missing, and very often events like births are registered a long time later and not during the year you think the person was born. So again, you have to be flexible with names, with towns, with time periods, because things aren't necessarily the way you think they are. And we were able to find this card. He was orphaned at age 11, went to live with other relatives in a bigger place in Łódź, which is the largest city in Poland today. And it shows him added onto this card, proved his age, and we were able to get Guinness Book of World Records to agree that he was the oldest man alive, which is, even more touching because he was an Auschwitz survivor. So that is the whirlwind trip in about an hour of JRI-Poland and what we do. Let me show you the website, and what I'm going to, I got to get to a clean screen here, and ask you if you would like to unmute, and we can deal with the next part a little more interactively. Let's see, there is something in the chat. I can check it. Oh, okay. I don't know how long that message has it's been sitting there for a while. Okay, sorry about not answering the message. Marcy, hopefully you can see, or maybe I don't know if you were talking about the handout couldn't be seen, or if you meant that you couldn't see the screen. But in any event,
When you were talking about recently these records, for some reason I lost the records that you were talking about. I don't know if you, I was looking at the records earlier, and then all of a sudden I just saw all the faces and yours talking, and not the records you were talking about,
Okay.
where the person was buried. I don't know if anyone else had the same problem, but I'm on an iPhone. So that
Okay.
might,
Yeah, iPhones work a little differently. So it's possible
okay.
that the screen wasn't wide enough and things got inverted to a vertical format. Can you see the primarily maroon colored screen now?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
so the first thing is to note that that particularly iPhones, but other cell phones smartphones may not they're not able to take the width of our screen, and we live in a world where screens and monitors are no longer standard sizes, so it's virtually impossible to make sure, and we don't have unlimited funds to make sure that a screen can fit on every kind of handheld device we have. So tablets and phones unfortunately often don't display our donate button, which is probably the most important button from my perspective to have on there. But you may have people say, well, why did you take the donate button off your website? Well, why would we do that? That doesn't make any sense. But so you will find display issues, and I apologize, but there's, all I can tell you is that our programmers who are contract programmers use Macs, and they use iPhones, and they use the Apple Watches and all of that, and they say it's just impossible to standardize. Everything is just so different. So if at first you don't succeed, please try on a bigger screen, and you may be able to see things better. The screen is the way it is because screens today are built, I like to say, like Fisher-Price toys. They have knobs and buttons and things that expect you to explore rather than saying, if you want to see something, click here. And so most of us who are over the age of 20 are not used to going beyond the margins and what they call the fold and exploring a screen. We just want to get to the answer. And unfortunately, that's not how websites are designed anymore. And so one has to actually explore. So what we've done is given you a clue here by bringing the gray part of the screen into the main view to let you know there's more down below. And you should move around and see on our screens what else there is. So scrolling is a big part of this. The other thing that happens is menus are kind of going away. And so this actually is a menu. A lot of people will say, I'm on your website, but I don't understand how to search. I don't understand it because there's this word search right here, but somehow many people don't see this as a menu bar because it doesn't have actual buttons on it. So please understand this is a menu bar. And the other thing to understand is when you see a logo, you can often click on things and learn more. Programmers call these things Easter eggs, so we call them Afikomen. And so, so just know, and I'll point out a couple that you may not be aware of, but our system really involves three main options. This one is a minor option. Three main options: learning about search by surnames, towns, and time periods to get to our database. And right now, as I mentioned, it's the legacy system. Towns, we've got this thing called Town Explorer, which I use daily, and I hope you will too. And Project Explorer, which is less developed because we have so many projects that we're still trying to develop these cards. And I want to give you a very brief introduction to them and then answer your questions, and I'll give you more detail by answering the questions. So below the fold, you'll find our announcement area. The one that you have to really check is this one called events, which I'm going to do, and you'll see that next Sunday, the 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern. Oh, yes, 1 p.m. Eastern. We always try to provide things in the Eastern time zone format. We're going to have a lecture on understanding the different collections within the JRI-Poland database. So we will be talking about non-vital records. So if you are beginning, if you are experienced, Doesn't really matter. This session will be aimed at you. The thing is that it is restricted, as you can see, to members only, which we have membership dues of $54 annually, which we've done for the last year and a half. It's a brand new thing, and we should have done it a lot earlier, and really found this. We find that people really do appreciate being able to say that they're a member, knowing that they're contributing to our organization as a whole, and also we're coming up with nifty benefits of membership, as in presentations which are recorded, and then I'll show you. Let me log in. We hit the login button. If you don't have an account yet, you can create one using the right side of the screen. If you have one, you can sign in using the left side of the screen. And then you'll notice it says, hello, Robin here. When I run my cursor over it, and remember what I said about Afikoman or Fisher Price Toys, that I have to run my cursor over it to get this drop-down menu that shows my profile, which is where I can see my membership status, or the video library, or to actually log out. So let me show you the video library really quickly, which is a listing of the programs we've done. We've only had this working since November. So since November, we have been posting various videos that if you are a member in good standing, you can watch, that will teach you more about things like how to perform a legacy search, the changing borders of Poland, understanding the patronymic records that did not have surnames attached, where they happened in Poland, what time periods, and how to search with them. We have general introductions. This is beginning to age. This is 2 years old, but general introductions to our new website and things for Galicianers, so you can basics of how to do research in Poland, etc. So you can see that we're trying to build a library, and that's constantly improving and changing thing. If I look at my profile, it will give my membership status. If you're not a member, it will say not yet. If your membership has expired, it will just show expired, and the date of when my membership will expire the next time. And there are various options which we're still building about how to renew or how to join from this page. And different parts of the page work better than others. Right now you can see I'm a beginner in Polish, that I just had my birthday. I can change my email address here, which is the user ID on our system. So you can see I cannot change my password here. I have to do that from the login, and I generally help people with those kinds of questions, so I wanted to point it out now. I can click on the JRI-Poland logo, and it'll bring me back to that home page. So that's the kind of behind the scenes part, or what to do with your profile, or to see if you're a member, or how to get to member benefits. It's by, again, rolling your cursor over this part. Let me show you Project Explorer super quickly. As I said, this is the part that's the least well developed of our system, because we're trying to gather in all the projects we have. But every couple of months, I change the featured project. Right now, it's newspaper death notices from the Nasz, I won't say it right, Przygląd. It's probably Zhigwad. No, it isn't, Zhiglad. And the importance of posting things like death notices is that places like, this is a paper in Warsaw, is that Warsaw was so entirely bombed and destroyed during World War II that the archives lost a lot of material. And so we can go to, that material's just gone. It was just, the buildings didn't survive, neither did the data. So, I mean, the paper. So we can go through things like newspapers to try to pick up things that were lost. So that's actually a really important project. You can scroll down, you can see that it says discover more projects, but you have to scroll down to actually see the projects. We try to let you know where we're raising money, how much money we're raising, what the project refers to. I can click on any of these Monopoly cards and see a little bit more data, make a donation, heart it so that I can find it again, share it, which gives me the URL to send to somebody so they can see this card, or to contact a project coordinator by using a form here. We also have these in our town card system, which I'll show you in a minute. When I have a picture, this is just a stock image, but when we have a picture that's helpful, I try to post it. I'm saying I a lot, but I mean we, so that you can see covers of things. Here we have the actual cover of a 1930s address list from Wrocław, which is called Breslau in German. This particular entry in our database is from Prussia, but today Wrocław is in Poland, and it includes more than 17,000 entries. It was developed in collaboration with an outside group called the Emanuel Ringelblum Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw. We call it JRI. And so you'll be able to see things like what surnames there are listed in that project. And this wasn't one that has an article associated with it, but it would have where we have written articles, we'll attach it to this, so you might be able to learn more about the project just from coming here to Project Explorer. We have a similar thing in Town Explorer, but we have maps and towns and things, and I can show you a couple examples in a few minutes, but it also gives you the option of favoriting things so that you can come and find it. It's really, my cursor is on something strange there. And you can browse, you can restrict areas, you can play with it to try to determine which town of 3 or 4 that have a similar name is your town, where is it on the map? And you can follow this key, which is beginning to tell us what the collections are like, but right now only shows vital records. So P for purple is basically refers to Prussia. A golden area town is a town where we have vital records, and that's carried over as a code onto the card. I'll show you Alexandrowski as a quick example that you'll see here. When you click on a town, it's showing you the town at the center. It shows how many records we have. This is a test in our test system. It's not a number that really is that helpful to you at this point, but it will be. And it shows you alternative names for the town, who the area coordinator is, gives you a place to contact the coordinator, tells you what we know about the sources that are available, which I can go into more detail if somebody's ready to hear about it. It tells you about our projects, again, shows a thermometer. And down at the very bottom, we give you some links to other places where you can learn about this particular town of interest. And so that's basically how our Town Explorer works. The hidden afikomen on this page is this coat of arms. If you click on the coat of arms, it will take you to a Wikipedia page if we have found one. We have about 20 of them that are not in English. Otherwise, we were able to find English pages for either this town. If it was a village or a hamlet, we were able to find the next bigger, either the market town or the county seat where they were, so you can learn more about your town. But again, it's kind of a hidden present, like an afikomen, and so you can explore town cards. But none of this gets you to our database, and that's what I want you to understand, is the only way to actually search our database is to go into the legacy search from the search option on the menu. And there are many, many options here. Let me see. Now we've got seven things in the chat. Let's see what some of the questions are. So maybe I can answer them as a group. Okay, so JRI-Poland is records included from small villages. Okay, and all right, so what I see is that the way, okay, so the way you can find a listing of the towns that are in our database is by going to Town Explorer. The 600 towns are the ones that are listed in gold, and you can actually play with that on Town Explorer. So I've kind of showed you that. Let's see, you can do it by if you were to hit this records key and click on only towns with records, then I believe you will get only gold towns. So that's your answer to the gold town question. In terms of Belarus and Ukraine, we are not allowing you to search Belarus and Ukraine. What we're doing is allowing you to search the records that are in Poland today. And so the records that are in Poland today often include records that are in Belarus and Ukraine, or towns that are in Belarus and Ukraine today, but their records are in Poland. The exception to that is the Grodno Area Project, which is a joint project with Jewish Gen's special interest group called the Belarus Research Division, where JRI-Poland and the Belarus Research Division are jointly raising money and getting records out of a Belarusian archive. It's the Grodno archive, and there are about 12 towns that are now in Poland, but whose records are still in Belarus. And so we do overlap. We have joint projects with Gesher Galicia in Ukraine, and also sometimes with Ukraine SIG, which is called the Jewish Gen Ukraine Research Division. So we also have groups, projects in common with Litvak SIG, which is also independent of Jewish Gen like we are and like Gesher Galicia is. So we work with other groups. We try very hard not to duplicate effort. We try to share information. And if you want to get a complete picture of something from Belarus or Ukraine, then you would go to the Jewish Gen website and search it there, and then it would lead you off into one of our other groups and the records that we have. Let's see. So let me get to Mindy's example, and then we can just see if you have other questions or want to see a search, and we can wrap things up. So Mindy wrote in and said that she's interested in a town in Belarus. And she spelled it 2 different ways. Let me put it in the chat because I think she spelled it L-I-O-Z.
Z.
Z, yes.
Sorry, Canadian.
It's okay. It's all right.
And I saw it. It came up on the map here. It's outside of Vitebsk.
That is correct. And that's actually what you put in the letter.
Oh.
It was also, you also spelled it L-I-O-Z-H.
And E and A, they've spelled it every way. Yes,
okay.
yes.
Now I want to show you how to search for it on Jewish Gen. In Jewish Gen, it took me a bit, but I found it as L-Y-E-Z-N-A. The E had umlauts, had 2 dots over it. And that was in the Jewish Gen Communities database. So the way I found it was very, very roundabout, but the first thing that I tried was to look in the JRI-Poland database, and did not find it.
No.
And so you see it says no result. If I type it in, you never did find it in our database, right?
No.
Okay. So what that means is that it may be a town that has some data in our database, but it's not a town or a village that we're aware of, that we're not aware that we need to be interested in it. Okay, it may be that we should be interested in it, in which case you should tell us and we might add it to our map. And that's how we have more than 1,900 towns in here right now. But the next thing that I would do after seeing, oh, there's no result, is I would go to the legacy system, and let me move this out of it, close the chat, and I would type it in. Now somebody wrote in to me last week and said, but it insists on a surname. No, actually it doesn't. There's whenever you see a caret, it means that there's a drop down menu and you can choose town and you can put something in. Now I'm going to put in Chicago just to show you that you could actually type in any town and you'll find that there are records of this. I think this is a divorce record actually, but there that in Lublin people came from the States to get a divorce, but you can actually find records for
By
a lot of
naming the
places,
town.
right? I mean, yeah, my family's from Chicago, but there's probably nothing for my family in 18 records. Now we also link to Jewish Gen, so this shows you that there are 5,107 records in Jewish Gen's Polish related databases that refer to Chicago. So, okay, that I might want to click there and go check it out, but we're trying, and my point is we're trying to reciprocate with these other groups so that you can search in one place. If I search, oops, forgot that key isn't working for some reason. If this is leaving the Next Gen, our new website, and going to our old website, I mean, our old database search, it's the last piece that's still working of our old website. I can search for your town, and I'll tell you, it'll come up right now saying that it won't find anything.
Okay, you checked
Lyezna. I checked. And so this was really an example of an unsuccessful, I lied. I didn't check this one. Lyezna. So there are actually 3 entries, 2 in Rodham and 1 in Shedlet. So let's see what they say. So, because really what I wanted to show was what the search results look like. So the towns, there's only one town, it's Janowiec, which happens to be in the Rodham area, and it gives you, but these records are actually in the Lublin archive, and it gives you the geo coordinates of this particular town. So you could see how far away is this town from the town you are interested in. And you can see here, it says this person's was living in Lyezna and in the Tarlov area. So then you'd have to figure out, is this the same town as the town you're interested in or not? If I look in the other Shedlet's record, you see it's also Lublin area, Menzrich Podlaski, again, Shedlet's Gubernia, but these records are in the Lublin archive because their provinces and counties changed over time. Again, giving you the geographic location. It tells you that this person this says
widow.
I don't know where that is, but it's you'd have to check on a map. So what I did was I went out to Google, the best genealogy resource outside of the Jewish genealogy movement, and I typed in the names that you gave me, and it says it's a town in Belarus. And when I saw that there was a Wikipedia page and it confirmed that it's in the Vitebsk region of Belarus, I knew that it was too far east to have been part of
the same Lozna.
It wasn't part of the Bialystok region, which is the region that overlaps with the Grodno Bialystok region. Vitebsk is farther east. So I knew that it wasn't going to be part of something in the JRI-Poland database. And then I went to see, how can I help you? And I went to Jewish Gen, and in Jewish
question.
Yeah, it's actually,
No.
The way I found, the way I would go there from our website was a little different. Let me do it this way. One thing you can do, let's say you're here in Town Explorer and you can't find your town. You can pick any town that is a gold town. Actually, I'm telling it to show, no, I don't want to show favorites. I'm telling it to show only gold towns. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm going to, if I pick Alexander Wojcicki and go to the town card and scroll down to the very bottom, one of the choices here, and again, think Fisher Price Toy, there's no box around this, it's a logo. These logos are clickable. One of the options here is the Jewish Gen Communities database. So I can click here and I get a message that says I'm leaving the JRI-Poland database and going to Jewish Gen. So yes, I want to do that. You notice I'm signed into JRI-Poland, but I'm not signed in to Jewish Gen. I could still get to this piece of it. And this, I think, is one of the hidden pearls of the Jewish Gen website. It's really, I think, underused. This is for Alexandrov Woodski, which is not near the town you're searching for.
No.
If I go down to the bottom of the page, I can, if I can get my cursor back, here we go. I can do another search on the communities database because I didn't remember which key it's on the Jewish Gen website. I think it's under Discover, but I don't remember. Anyway, so I can search here and I search for Liozna. I'm going to say all countries, it's phonetically like. And again, this is not the JRI-Poland data web page. This is Jewish Gen. It gives me options.
And there's
First one, and here
Poland. Oh, Soviet, yeah.
Right, here it is, Liezhna, Belarus.
Right.
And then it tells me in different time periods what country it was a part of.
Right.
What area. So here you see it's reconfirming that it was in Vitebsk area in
Mohilev
Belarus.
is the gubernia, or Orsha, yeah.
Right, so when it was in the Russian Empire and it was part of Russian Poland, then it was part of the Mogilev area before World War I. And so there's two things here that I think are fabulous. One is that this is telling you that there are 42 other, it's actually not people, it's actually Jewish Family Finder entries. So you can find other people who are interested in this place and ask them what they found and have they been there and what do they know.
Yeah.
But then over here you see that there's this this symbol. And if I click on the symbol, I get the page in the Jewish Gen Jewish Communities database that's specifically for the town you're interested in. And it tells you what other towns are nearby.
There it is, right.
And how far away they are. And then if there was a link, if there was a link here to JRI-Poland, it would mean that we had a significant amount of information on it. So you can get that information more than one way, but we're trying to refer to each other. And that's what I'm attempting to show you here.
Right.
So there are resources through Jewish Gen for your town. And there is, as you know, this doesn't show up very well, but the Jewish Gen Belarus database is part of their Jewish Gen's unified database, but there is a whole group, as you and I discussed in our telephone call that we had subsequent to your email, there is a whole group and projects, and we're working with them, and we're all paying the same outside researcher. Okay, so that's the loop on that story, and all I have to say, unless there's something else I can show you. Okay, go ahead. It says hello. I see Ellie Rockland.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. My father's name was Max Shiptinsky, and he was born in Vilna, which is now called Vilnius.
Vilnius. Yeah.
And he's in the green part, so you have no information.
Correct. So Vilnius is the
It's a very big city.
It's a very big city, but it's in Lithuania.
Yeah.
So JRI-Poland does not have information on Vilnius or Vilna because the Polish archives don't have information on that city. That city's information is in the Lithuanian state archives. And so, right, we don't have information on a lot of places that are outside of Poland because they never had records in Poland. Okay,
So
does that make?
I would have to go to
Lithuania.
Correct. Vilnius, Lithuania. I've forgotten now if it's the capital or if Kaunas is the capital now.
No,
but
I think Vilnius.
Is it Vilnius? I think it's the capital of Lithuania. So so yes, you can look on Jewish Gen, but when you if you do a search on, are you familiar with Jewish Gen or not?
No, not at all.
Okay.
This is the first of
That's
anything.
your start.
Okay, very cool. So Jewish Gen, which is not my organization, but which I'm happy to support and have for 30 years, is we say the global home for Jewish genealogy. So if you were just getting started in Jewish genealogy, the first thing I think you want to do, well, often people turn to ancestry.com, which I don't understand. Don't do that if you haven't already. And you're recording me, so I shouldn't have said it, but
No,
the
no,
first thing
I
you want
don't
to
go
do,
to Ancestry.
a lot of people do, they go, oh, I'm on Ancestry, I have everything, right? No, the home of Jewish genealogy is jewishgen.org, and they are interested in Jewish ancestry anywhere in the world, not just Poland. And so if you come here, you will have to create, you see, I'm already logged in, but you will have to create an account, and it's a free account, just like on JRI-Poland, but you have to log in. During the time, maybe 25 years ago, when we didn't have logins on JewishGen, we got anti-Semitic hate mail. So it protects us all. You log in and you can do a lot of things here. What you'll do first of all is search for your family name. Tell me what the name is again, please. A little.
Sheptinsky, Sheptinsky.
Okay, so if I put in the surname, I'm going to just say all countries, and we'll find out how common or uncommon the name is. You'll see it's a pretty uncommon name. It came up with, doesn't tell me how many total entry. Oh, 68, here it is. 68
Wow.
matches, which is, but you'll see that the most prominent looking matches are at Litvak-Sig, which if this, so that would seem to confirm that your family was going to be found in, Lithuanian records, right? So here, family tree of the Jewish people are things that other people have submitted. I generally don't look at that. I would start with what data is there. So there were some Sheptinskys listed in the Jewish partisans in Belarus, and that's typical that Lithuanian Jews and Belarusian Jews had a lot in common, and the Jews of Belarus generally walked into Belarus from Lithuania or took the train. So you're going to want to be interested in Belarus and Lithuania. You can see where people are buried around the US with that name in Florida and mostly New York. And there's somebody in the
I know those
veterans section.
people,
Okay,
That's
and
good.
so
You've got so many.
but
And so,
I have his mother's name and his father's name.
So what
So
you'll do is
cool.
this, and again, I'm not going to do your personal research for you, but to say
Right.
what you need to do is to create your account on JewishGen, do your search, and then reach out and see if you click on these things where the title of the record collection is, you'll get information about the record collection. Like here, let's look at Jewish partisans in Belarus. So you see there's a whole background document that was written by somebody named Jenny Bush or Buch here. And so you can learn a lot about the database, the elements in the database, and who needs to be thanked for it. But let's see if I go back. Nope, it won't let me do that. How do I get it? Just
But you've
closed it.
got
I was afraid.
Such a lot of records showing up. That's great.
Yeah. So Sheptinsky, let's
Just-
go back there one more time to just say, if you click on the left side, you'll get a description of the project. If you click on the right side, you'll see the records. And so you'll see here, there's the biggest group is this survivor interviews from the USC Shoah Foundation, which used to be called the Steven
Wow.
Spielberg Shoah Foundation. And so you'll find references there. So again, that's outside of my lecture today, but
Now,
it was
to
a really good
join-
question to
right,
ask.
To join your group, my husband and I, it's $30. And
No.
and how
No,
do
no.
we do that?
No, thank you. But so if you do want to become a member,
A member, right?
a member of JRI-Poland, then I can't, got to move this. There's a first of all, you create an account on our system, and then you would go to, the best thing to do is to go to our profile. I'm already a member, so it's not going to show it, but it would say annual membership, not yet, and then it would have a button here that says to join, which is $54 annually. There are other
But
ways
you don't
to
need
give.
to do that. Your stuff's not with them.
Exactly. If you're not interested in exploring Poland, then you don't want to become I mean,
Member
you want to start by joining,
Gen.
by making an account on JewishGen, They do not have membership. They ask for annual donations. I usually give to them twice a year. And you can give them any amount you want, but you can read about how to donate to them. And if your family is truly from Vilnius, and I've been there twice, it's a great place. If your family is from Vilnius, you're going to want to check out Litvak-SIG, the Lithuanian Special Interest Group. Which is kind of, we're kind of the Polish counterpart to them. They're our sister organization, but totally separate. And you're going to want to join their organization and get involved in their projects. So start with Jewish Gen and then learn about Litvak-SIG, which you can get to from that.
JewishGen.org. Right, got it.
Okay, so start there. And then when you need more help, look to Litvak-SIG. And I'm sure that
is that SIG?
Yes. Yeah. Special interest group. So it's Litvak, SIG.org. I'll show you what their website looks like at let's see, Litvak-SIG.org. Okay. And they're green and yellow. And here's what they look like. Okay, and then you see they've got a big yellow button that says join or contribute, and I've been a member of them for probably 25 years as well. Okay, what else can I do to help you?
That's it. Thank you so much.
That's it. Oh, when is the conference in London? Okay, so the conference
That's
in
me again.
That's
You
fine.
told me, I think it was in August, right?
No, well, yes, but no. So the conference in London will be an in-person conference that begins July 30th.
Yeah, I always thought I was Polish.
It begins July 30th. It ends August 3rd. And this is something like the 43rd conference, I think, but it's the first time since COVID that we're meeting in person. So it's a big
So
deal. It's also,
can I just put it into Google and I'll see what it's about? And
yeah, let me show you again because they are recording this. Let me show you the website. If you type in IAJGS, it's already in there for me. It's the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies, of which the JGS of Southwest Florida is a member. Then I'm
in Toronto now.
Okay, if you put in IAJGS2023.org, you will get the conference.
I'll get the conference website and the whole thing about it.
And you can see the whole thing about it there. Okay.
I
July
don't
30th
want to
August
take
30th.
anyone's place, but I did have another question. I don't know if you're up for, but is there somebody else?
It doesn't look like it. I think we're really kind of at the end. So
at the end, I know. I just wanted to ask you because you know, your statement today, of course, and I should have known this about Jewish surnames, that they don't exist really probably until the end of the 19th century.
No, it's the beginning of the 19th century, not the
beginning
end.
Of the 19th century. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So looking up somebody where I'm reading off a gravestone and all you're getting is Bat Naftali Hertz HaKohen.
Yeah.
Obviously I don't know if there is a surname or there's not a surname, but you're saying you can actually research somebody by those names. And
what I'm saying is that it's very difficult. We're in the process of creating a database that will allow you to do that more often. I showed you that I searched my ancestor, Naftali Hertz, without the surname, but with the town. So the given names and the town, and I was able to find his tombstone. I know it's the right tombstone. There's no surname on that tombstone. It does not say Ziegelman, although the one I showed you from Warsaw, which was 20th century, did show the Magid or Magid last name. The one from 1828, it gave I could match his name. I knew who his father was because I have his death record. And so I could match the date of death, his name, and his father's name. And of course I have the town, really. So I know that that's my ancestor's Matseva tombstone, but you have to have some other corroborating information because it's not all.
You're not looking up HaKohen. That's just the statement that he was a Kohen.
At this point in time, there is no database not MyHeritage, not Ancestry, not
Nothing.
JewishGen, not Litvakzig. No, there is no other database, and not yet JRI-Poland, that
Right.
allows you to search on HaKohen. What we're going to
Right.
be doing in our new database is to allow you to use HaKohen as a last name, to toggle whether you want it
And
to be
look for it
considered
that
and
way.
searched on, if you
Right.
happen to know that your family, what mine wasn't, but let's say my ancestor was Naphtali Hertz Halevi, to use
Right.
Halevi, or Naphtali Hertz the Tsigelnik, which is the brick man, we're going to let you use occupation, patronymic,
Oh,
or
anything, right, but that's
anything.
not coming for a while. Yeah.
That's not coming for a while, because
Right.
and it's not because, I mean, it's actually, the database has been enlarged to handle it. The software can handle it. We don't have the data in the records yet. And that's the hard
Yeah,
part, that we
that's
have
what's coming.
about 160 volunteers around the globe working on stuff, but
Input that.
it's gonna take years before we
time.
can really get the
And,
data.
when that's a mother's name, you can, there's no way to find a
Well,
maiden name from a gravestone.
That it's a good thing. And then Mindy, I want to cut this off because I
Yeah.
think
No,
it's
fair.
dominating
Yeah.
the conversation. But
Sure.
but in turn, what we're allowing you to do, and this is actually what MyHeritage and Ancestry do, and we're moving to that by redoing our database, is something that's called the searchable individual format. So if you know the mother's name or the father's name, but you don't know, like you might know that it's somebody bought, you're not, unless you
No.
had somebody was saying like a Misha Berach list, you're not necessarily going to know the mother's name, but not the father's, but it's possible, I guess. If you had just that information in the way we're changing our search system, we're going to allow you to search for, let's say, Naphtali Hertz, you don't have a last name, but we know his mother's name was Malka, which mine was.
Yeah.
Because I have his death record, then we're going to allow you to search for those two individuals. And what would turn up is his death record that showed that Naphtali Hertz is, died in 1828. His surname was Siegelman. His mother was Malka. And then you'd be able to figure out if this was your ancestor or not, again, with other corroborating information. So we're trying to move to the searchable individual format. And again, that requires us to move to a situation where we're allowing you to search on things other than surname. And most databases in the genealogical world do not require you to have a surname, but we're interested in getting you beyond that. So that's, I think, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. Wonderful to
Etab.
hear you. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Mindy. Etab,
I'm finding this fascinating. I have a question with regards to passports.
Okay.
This is my father-in-law was born in Poland / Austria-Hungary, around 1903.
Okay.
And we have what we think is his original passport. From when okay. But inside the passport, it says Dolina.
Okay.
And I looked up Dolina, and that says it's in the Ukraine or Belarus, either one. I forget right now.
Okay.
So I'm very confused as to why someone who was saying he's from Poland, the town began with I think he was born in the town as WIECZ or something like, or CZL or something like that. He's born there, but he never once said that he was from, Ukraine or Belarus or anything like that.
Correct, because he was born in 1903, or we
Yes.
said the passport. Okay, so what you have to do is see where was this? Is it Dolina with an I in the middle?
This is, I don't know if you could see that.
Okay, that says Dovud.
It's inside. When I open it up, it says,
Okay, that's the passport. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It says Dolina. I can't read. I don't know what this word means, but
All right. Okay. I don't know if you can hold the password. Is it in Russian? Is it in Russian and French?
it's written out. It's some in You know, I don't know what language this is.
All right, do you want to hold it up?
It's not Russian.
It's not Russian. Okay,
It's
it's
not
in
in
it's in
Cyrillic. It's not in
Latin-based
Cyrillic.
characters. Okay,
See, this is part of it.
yeah. So that's the Russian Empire eagle,
Oh, it is?
and it looks like it's in more than one language.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
okay, no, it's not crazy. It's just a different country. Hold it up one more time, if you would, please.
hold on. It's very delicate. It's, you know, like
I understand. Okay, so let's see if we can make that out. All right, so it looks like it's in okay, so I see DOL. It's hard to see if that's a or does that say Polina? Is that a D or a P?
you know, I don't know. It's hard
I
to
think
read.
I think that just is
Oh,
Poland.
maybe
Does
it's
it
Polina. Maybe it's Polina.
I think it's just saying it's in Poland. So what is the town that you think he was born in?
WIE. I'm gonna look. I have his birth. I actually think I have his birth certificate.
Okay, so you know, I don't want to hold everybody captive,
yeah.
but in terms of the way you work through it, so then the way you work through these things is you start with your document, you figure out what the time period is. Once you've got the time period, we know we're talking about a birth in 1903. What year was the passport issued?
1923.
1923. Okay, so in 1923, this town may have been in a different country. It the whatever town this is. If you know the town that he was, let's do this another way. Let's go back to.
I have his birth.
Oh, you got it in front of you. Okay, can you tell me the town that he was born in?
Okay, I think this is the name of the town. I tried doing Google Translate.
Okay.
It says WE. I think it's a T. D. RIRZ. But then
All
it
right.
also says.
That doesn't come up as a town. It comes. Okay.
How about W?
Again, the best thing is if you could hold it up so that I could see it, which I know you're dealing with really delicate documents. And what I would suggest, if we can't see it, okay, so that's probably okay. So what I would suggest, it looks like it says Bialystok or something. What does it say before that word?
I don't.
Okay, what I would suggest you do is take a picture of it and email it to me, and I'll help you with a specific case.
Okay.
But in general, just to explain to the group what we do, what you want to do is our tendency is to become a microscope and focus, you know, way in. And what we need to do is pull back a bit, telescope out a bit, and see what languages are we talking about? What time period are we talking about? It's basically the search strategy that I was explaining before of what's the surname, what towns are involved, and what time period, because that's going to tell you what empire it was in, which is going to tell you what languages things were in. And in my experience, things that are issued in the 1920s or issued in the 20th century are going to be in more than one language. The lingua franca, right, that was generally French and not English in the early 20th century. So we tend to see things in Russian and French or Polish and French. And so so don't be surprised to see things in more than one language and to think, well, this country was never part of France. Well, it might have been actually if Napoleon came through, but you want to identify what country was it at the time the document was prepared, and then find it on a map. And one of the things you can do to do that, the first thing we have to do is interpret handwriting. And there are languages that have special characters. So sometimes a T is a Polish, it's called a soft L or a crossed L. It looks like a T to us, but it might be that T is really an L, and that's why I want to see the actual handwriting. In Polish, a Z or a Z looks like an R, and an E, the letter E looks like the letter C, and the letter C looks like the letter E. So you get used to seeing what script looks like in other languages, even though it's Latin based, it may not be what we assume it is. And then you look for a hit. What's the closest thing? Realizing that in Polish, again, we're talking 20th century now, but in 19th century, there was no spelling convention. So, so we have to be fluid and look and find things on more than one document, which is why also somebody wrote me today about this, asking, why would I be interested in extracting information about relatives that aren't my direct ancestors? Why would I want to widen my search? One of the reasons to widen the search is this might be the only document you have for your parent or your grandparent. And so you might want to find their siblings and get corroboration by other documents, or maybe even the cemetery section they're buried in, to find out the name of that town you can't find. So you want to kind of telescope out even from that person and learn things. So anyway, I hope that helps, and I will help you individually, but I don't want to hold up the group.
Yeah, I did quite a bit of looking on JewGen, but it was like,
Okay, so let's start with send me the actual document, and I'm happy to help you. Maybe just tell me your first name, because ETAB is Ellen. Okay, thanks, Ellen. And you can see my email address right there as my name. Just please remember the second N, and that Magid only has one G, although we think it should have two. Okay, is there anything else, or can we?
Rob, let me give you a 30-second quick description of an issue.
Go ahead, Jim.
So about 2 years ago, I became aware that on the I have Belarusian ancestors.
Okay.
I became aware on the LDS Family Search site, they have archives with a large number of Jewish lifestyle record images. They're not indexed.
Right.
I'm estimating there's probably thousands, and there is a way to search in there to break out the Jewish related records.
Okay.
So there's probably thousands of records on there. There's actually 369 rolls of microfilm. I've got some screenshots of some examples I can send to you if this is of any interest. But I approached Jewish Gen with this, and I mean, I told them I'd be very interested in donating or maybe even underwriting the effort to digitize them. By the way, I worked with Stanley years ago to digitize my grandmother's village in Poland. That's one of the 600 villages, I guess. And they had no interest. So
okay.
Is that something JRI-Poland might have an interest in?
Probably not. I mean, the towns really have to be, like I said, we try not to step on toes as well as not duplicate. But so when you contacted Jewish Gen, did you contact
the right people?
Paul
I talked to the person in charge of the Belarusian area.
The Belarus,
and you had her name up on the screen earlier.
Okay.
On one of the screens.
Okay, because it really is the Belarus SIGs area. I mean, you could write to Stanley actually and ask him what he thought. But what happens is, because these are, and I'm assuming they're Russian language records. Is that?
I'm looking at an example right now. Some of them are in Hebrew, and actually some of the pages have dual language. So it's Hebrew on one side.
Hebrew on one side, Russian on the other. So those are vital records. Generally, the vital records in Belarus and Ukraine were done in Hebrew and in Russian. What it means, I mean, they're not towns that are, if they're towns that were never part of Poland, then it's really outside of our geographic area, and that would be like poaching on Belarus. So we try to stay away from it. But if I understand that we're all volunteers in all of these groups, except Jewish Gen does have some employees, and so it may just be they don't have the bandwidth to do it. It's great that you want to throw money at it, and I mean, it's like a dream, right? Why wouldn't they say yes? They probably have some reason, and I couldn't speculate what it is, except that they probably feel like they have their hands full. I do know there's a really good friend of mine who was supposed to be my backup for my grandma's city, died suddenly in spring of 2018, and she was the primary. It's Ruth Gamper Silver, and she was my age actually, exactly now, and she died suddenly, and so she was the person who was their data acquisitions person and the interface between people, and I'm not sure that they've really recovered from the loss of Ruthie, and so it just maybe they have their hands full.
Seemed like scanning, as far as the economics of it, it seemed like the scanning process on site would be probably the most expensive part of the process, and that's already been done.
That part, well, I can say if this is LDS, first of all, the church's resources are a lot greater than ours. But the thing is that unlike what we're doing in Poland, the stuff in, well, Hebrew or I do have Hebrew volunteers, mostly Israelis. I have a small team of Israelis that have done like death cemetery registers and things that are in Hebrew and Yiddish, but in general, it's really hard for a volunteer organization to find translators in Hebrew and in Cyrillic. And so we almost entirely pay, as JRI-Poland, pay for Cyrillic, and it's expensive. So it costs twice as much to extract a Russian language record than a Polish record if we're paying somebody to do it. And part of it is that it's in Old Russian, and so it's not just everyday Russians who are competent at transcribing it, and then you have to transcribe it. A lot of things, like you'll see, I'm not trying to disparage what Litvak-Sig does, because what they do is great. But when I look at my family's names on Litvak-Sig, I often see a phonetically translated, like transliteration, that isn't a word that's easy to pronounce. Rather than when I look at JRI-Poland, we've taken our Cyrillic and transcribed it into Polish so that it sorts alphabetically within Polish language records. So there's other considerations in the Cyrillic translation that make it more complicated. And it's quite time consuming, particularly if the records are in the communist years. The records, of course, if you have a vital record that's got Hebrew in it, you're dealing with Jews. But in the communist years, we're very often having to pick out the Jewish name. So you have to hire somebody who can separate out the Jews from the non-Jews, because we're not competent in the non-Jewish names. So anyway, that's not, making excuses for them when it's not my due. It may just be something they can't handle right now for various reasons.
Just to give you a heads up, I think I'll just email you my earlier one, which has the screenshots in it. You can just see at a glance what I'm talking about.
Okay. That sounds great.
Maybe
And
I've
seen them before, because I have ancestors from the Kyiv and Zhytomyr area, much farther east in Ukraine, which thankfully I've been before Putin got there. Anyway, there's a lot of considerations when you're working in other countries and other languages. So that, anyway, I'm not surprised that it kind of, most of the questions were not about Poland, but about surrounding areas, because as I said, I did entitle it Finding Your Eastern European Ancestors. And I think that is actually something more relevant to a JGS, where we haven't congregated. We're congregated because of where we live, rather than because of our special interest in a place like Poland. So anyway, thank you for sticking around. Kim, I don't know if there's anything else you need to do, or if we can, it's about lunchtime for me. You guys are.
Yeah, I thank you so much. And we do want to, give a donation to JRI-Poland. And I do want to physically mail a check. Can you email me the address of where I can mail the check and how I make it payable?
I will do that. What I'll do, just to show you, is I will go to the donate page.
Oh, okay.
And right on it, if you just hit that yellow donate button and you scroll down, it shows you right here, need help.
Yeah.
And that's Gary Pacross's address in New York. He's the treasurer, and you can send it to him. But I'll, I can send it to you if you don't.
Yeah, it'll be a good reminder for me too.
Okay, I will do that. And thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to hang out and talk and answer general genealogy questions. And like I said, show off my family, because I don't get to do that very much. So